This baby isn't yours, Maid's daughter whispered to Billionaire. DNA test revealed a shocking truth. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. In a grand mansion perched on a hill overlooking the city, a powerful billionaire named William Masters sat at the head of an elegantly set dinner table. The soft glow of the chandelier above cast shadows on the marble floors, and the scent of freshly prepared food filled the air. Guests mingled, laughter echoed through the halls, but amidst the opulence, one young voice was about to disrupt everything. At first glance, nothing about the situation seemed unusual. Masters was a man used to being in control, his empire spanning across multiple industries. He had everything he could ever want: wealth, power, and a life many envied. But the evening was about to take a turn that no one expected. William had recently welcomed a baby into his life, a little girl whom he believed to be his daughter. His wife, Vanessa, a stunning woman with a polished demeanor, had given birth just a few months ago. The baby was their pride and joy, or so he thought. As the night unfolded, a soft voice, almost too quiet to hear, echoed from the corner of the room. It was Mary, the maid's daughter, a young girl no older than 11, standing quietly in the shadows. She had been told to remain out of sight, just another invisible presence in the household. But Mary had always been observant. She had watched, listened, and absorbed things others never noticed. And tonight, her attention had been caught by something that would change everything. The baby in question had been playing with her toys, lying on a blanket in the corner, as the adults enjoyed their conversation. Mary had been in and out of the room, cleaning, but when she heard the soft whimper of the baby, her heart sank. Something wasn't right. She had seen the way Vanessa had been acting lately, distant, colder than usual. There were rumors, whispered conversations between staff members that Mary had overheard. Whispers of secrets, of a child who wasn't really William's. As she carefully approached the baby, her eyes narrowed. The truth was hidden in plain sight, and she had to act. The more she watched, the more she realized that the baby's features didn't match William's. The baby's eyes, those were the eyes of someone else. With a quiet breath, she approached William. "Excuse me, sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But this baby isn't yours." William's expression shifted immediately, from curiosity to disbelief. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. "What do you mean?" William asked, his voice low and controlled, but a flicker of concern danced in his eyes. "I mean, this baby, she's not yours. She's someone else's. I know because I've seen the truth. You need to take a DNA test." The tension in the room grew thick, and everyone, from the guests to the staff, held their breath. William stood frozen, his mind racing, trying to comprehend what he had just heard. His eyes darted from the baby to his wife, then back to the little girl standing before him. "You're lying," he said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. The young girl stood firm, looking up at him with innocent yet piercing eyes. "I'm not lying, sir. I know what I saw." The room remained silent, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioning. And then, after what felt like an eternity, William made a decision. "We'll get the test. I need to know the truth." The next few days were a blur. William ordered the DNA test, and the results would soon reveal something so shocking that it would turn his world upside down. But Mary, the quiet maid's daughter, had already changed the course of events. She had set in motion a chain of revelations that no one had anticipated. The truth was about to be unveiled, and it would expose secrets that no amount of wealth or power could hide. The days that followed were filled with an unsettling calm. William could not shake the image of the young girl's words, her voice trembling, but so certain. The shock of hearing those words, "This baby isn't yours," kept ringing in his ears. His thoughts swirled as he tried to understand how this could be possible. He had raised the baby as his own, given her all the love and care that any father would. How could anyone doubt that she was his? But then Mary's words, and the way the baby's features didn't quite match his own, kept him up at night. The DNA test was scheduled, and the waiting game began. William couldn't even look at his wife, Vanessa, without feeling a surge of doubt. Vanessa, who had once been the center of his world, seemed more distant than ever. She no longer smiled the same way, no longer spoke with the same warmth. Instead, she avoided his gaze, the tension between them building with each passing day. William tried to ignore it, to focus on the test results, but something gnawed at him, something he couldn't shake off. Mary's simple warning had set a chain of events into motion, and now there was no turning back. The day the DNA test results arrived, William was in his study. He opened the envelope with shaking hands, and as his eyes scanned the paper, his heart dropped. The results were clear. The baby was not his. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He dropped the paper, staring at the words in disbelief. His world had shattered in that moment. How could he have been so blind? How had he not seen it sooner? His gaze moved to the window, where the sun had begun to set, casting long shadows over the estate. The golden light made everything look surreal, almost dreamlike, as if he were trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. And then there was the baby, the little girl who was still playing with her toys in the corner of the room, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. William turned to face Vanessa, his voice hoarse as he asked, "Vanessa, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Vanessa stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked into the room and sat down across from him. She looked at the floor, avoiding his gaze. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you, William. I thought if I kept quiet, things would just stay normal." The silence between them stretched on, each word heavy with unspoken feelings. William's mind raced. He thought of all the years they had spent together, the love, the trust, the family they had built. And now it all felt like a lie. He thought of Mary, the young girl who had risked everything to speak the truth. She had seen something he had failed to notice, something that had been hidden from him for so long. "What else have you been hiding, Vanessa?" he asked, his voice cold now, filled with anger and betrayal. Vanessa looked up at him, her eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, William. I never meant for it to go this far." The room felt colder than before, the weight of the truth settling in. William knew that nothing would ever be the same again. He had been betrayed, not just by Vanessa, but by the very life he had built for himself. And now, the only thing that mattered was the truth. Mary had uncovered it, and it was more shocking than he had ever imagined. The test results had revealed a secret that had been kept from him for far too long. A secret that, once revealed, would change everything. The truth hung heavy in the air, its weight unbearable. William sat in his study, the DNA test results still lying on the desk in front of him. His mind raced, his emotions spinning out of control. The life he had built, the family he thought he knew, had all come crashing down around him. He had trusted Vanessa, had believed in their life together, and now everything felt like a lie. As the room grew colder, he looked at the baby, who was still playing innocently in the corner, oblivious to the storm that had just begun. William's gaze shifted back to Vanessa, who was standing by the door, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes avoided his, a mixture of shame and guilt evident in every move she made. "How could you keep this from me?" William's voice was sharp, breaking the silence. "How could you lie to me about this?" Vanessa flinched at the harshness in his tone, but she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she knew had to be said. Slowly, she walked toward him, her steps tentative, as if she were unsure of what kind of reception she would receive. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost fragile. "I never wanted to hurt you, William. But I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if you knew the truth." William stared at her, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "Afraid? Afraid of what? That I would leave you? That everything we built together would fall apart?" Vanessa's face softened with regret, but she didn't speak. She just stood there, her eyes filled with unshed tears. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. "You should have told me," William said, his voice low and filled with pain. "I deserve to know." Vanessa nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose everything, but now I see that I already have." The room seemed to close in on him as William tried to process her words. The pain of betrayal was overwhelming, but there was something deeper, something more unsettling. He had always prided himself on being able to see through people, on being able to read the signs and understand the truth. But now, the truth was staring him in the face, and he couldn't make sense of it. How had he been so blind? He had seen the baby as his own, had loved her as his own, and yet the test results proved otherwise. The realization that he had been deceived was crushing, but it also sparked something in him. Something he hadn't felt in years. He had been betrayed, yes, but he also had the power to uncover the rest of the story. The truth was still out there, and William wasn't about to let it slip away. "I need answers, Vanessa," he said, his voice firm now. "I need to know everything." Vanessa nodded again, her face resigned. "I'll tell you everything, William. But please understand, I never wanted this to happen." The room was thick with the weight of her words, and William's mind raced as he tried to piece together the fragments of the truth. He knew he couldn't move forward until he knew the full story. The truth had to come out, no matter how painful it might be. He glanced at Mary, the maid's daughter, who had stood quietly in the corner, watching them. She had been the one to speak the truth, to force them all to confront what had been hidden for so long. Her eyes met his, filled with quiet certainty. She knew more than she had let on, and now it was time for William to learn the rest. The truth would come, whether he was ready for it or not. The tension in the room grew thicker as William stood up, the weight of the DNA test results still fresh in his mind. He was determined now, more than ever, to uncover the full truth, even if it meant facing the uncomfortable reality that had been hidden from him for so long. The baby he had raised as his own was not his. The lie that had been woven around him was unraveling, and he could no longer ignore the doubts that had started to creep into his life. Vanessa, still standing across the room, looked at him with eyes full of regret. She had told him that she would explain everything, but there was an unease in her expression that suggested there was more she was holding back. As William paced the room, the reality of the situation hit him harder than he expected. How could he have been so blind? How could he have trusted so completely, only to find out that everything he had believed in was based on a lie? His thoughts were interrupted when Mary, the maid's daughter, stepped forward, her small frame steady with an almost eerie calmness. "I can help you find the truth," she said softly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried with it a sense of undeniable certainty. William turned to her, his eyes narrowing as he took in her words. She was just a child, yet she had seen something he had not, something no one else had noticed. The realization hit him like a wave. Mary had known the truth all along. She had been the one to see what others had missed, and now she was offering him a chance to understand it. "What do you know?" William asked, his voice low and filled with desperation. Mary hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "It's not just the baby, Mr. Masters. There's more to the story than you think." William felt his heart race as he moved closer to her. He could tell she wasn't lying. She knew something that would change everything. "What do you mean?" he pressed, his tone sharp. Mary glanced at Vanessa, then back at William. "Your wife? She's not who you think she is. She's been hiding things from you for years. Things that could destroy everything you've built." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. William felt his stomach churn as he looked from Mary to Vanessa. His mind raced, trying to process what he had just heard. Could it be true? Could Vanessa have been hiding something so significant? He turned back to Mary. "What are you saying? What exactly has she been hiding?" Mary's voice softened, but there was no hesitation in her words. "Vanessa isn't just your wife, Mr. Masters. She has ties to people you don't even know. She's been keeping secrets about your family's legacy. The baby is just the beginning." The room seemed to close in around William as the truth, or at least part of it, began to take shape. The pieces were finally coming together, but they were not what he expected. The woman he had loved and trusted, the mother of the child he had raised, was not who she appeared to be. His empire, his family, everything he had worked for, was built on lies. And the only person who had the answers was the very person he least expected, Mary, the maid's daughter. He looked at her, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. "Why are you telling me this? What do you want?" Mary looked up at him, her gaze unwavering. "I want you to know the truth, Mr. Masters. It's the only way to set things right." William took a deep breath, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no choice now. He had to find out the full extent of the truth, no matter where it led him. And as he turned to face Vanessa, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. William stood frozen, the words Mary had just spoken echoing in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that his world was slowly collapsing around him. The woman he had loved, the woman who had given him a child, was not who she seemed. And now, a young girl, the maid's daughter, was the one who held the key to unlocking the truth. Mary had just dropped a bombshell, and William was struggling to process it all. He turned to Vanessa, who had been standing silently by the door, her face pale, her body stiff with tension. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air in the room was thick with unspoken questions, with the weight of the truth that was yet to be revealed. Finally, William broke the silence. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice strained, barely above a whisper. Vanessa didn't immediately respond. Instead, she looked down at the floor, her hands trembling as she fidgeted with the fabric of her dress. "Vanessa, I need you to tell me," William pressed, his voice growing firmer. "What is it that you've been hiding? Who are you really?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, and she looked up at him, her face a mixture of guilt and sorrow. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she said, her voice cracking. "But you need to know the truth. I was never just a woman who married you for love. I came from a different world, a world you don't know." William felt his chest tighten. His heart raced as he tried to understand her words. "What do you mean? What kind of world are you talking about?" Vanessa took a deep breath, wiping away the tears that had fallen from her eyes. "Before I met you, I was involved with people who had ties to organized crime. I was trying to escape that life, but I was still connected to them, to the secrets they held. And when I met you, I saw a chance to leave it all behind. I thought I could start fresh with you, that we could build something real." William was stunned, his mind spinning. "Organized crime? What does that have to do with the baby? Why would you lie to me about something like this?" Vanessa's face was pale, her eyes haunted. "The baby, she's not yours, William. She belongs to someone else from that world. But I had no choice. They made me do it. They said I had to keep her, raise her as yours, or else they would hurt us. Hurt you. I didn't know what to do, so I kept the secret." William felt his stomach drop. The revelation hit him like a punch. The baby, the child he had loved and cared for, wasn't his. She had been a pawn in a dangerous game, and Vanessa had been forced to play along. His thoughts raced as he tried to process the magnitude of what he had just learned. "So, you've been lying to me this entire time? This whole life we've built, it's all a lie?" Vanessa nodded, her face filled with regret. "I never wanted to deceive you, William. I never wanted to hurt you. But I had no choice. I thought I could protect you from it all, that we could live our lives in peace. But now, everything is falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." William felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over him. He had trusted her, had given her everything, and now he was left with nothing but lies and shattered illusions. "And the baby?" he asked, his voice cold. "What do we do about her?" Vanessa looked down at the floor, unable to meet his gaze. "I don't know," she whispered. "But I know one thing for sure. She's innocent in all of this. She didn't ask for any of it. We have to protect her, William. We have to make sure she's safe." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their reality. William's mind was a whirlwind, his emotions a chaotic mix of anger, disbelief, and a deep sense of loss. But one thing was clear to him now. He had to find out who was behind this, and he had to protect the baby, no matter what. The truth was out, but the journey ahead was just beginning. William's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions, each one more intense than the last. Betrayal, disbelief, anger. He felt it all as he sat in his study, trying to process everything Vanessa had just revealed. She had been hiding the truth from him for so long, and now the full scope of the lie was coming to light. The baby wasn't his. The woman he had trusted, the woman he had married, had been living a double life, tied to a dangerous world of crime and deceit. The shock was unbearable, but there was something else lingering in William's heart, a burning desire to protect the child, to right the wrongs that had been done. The truth about Vanessa and the baby had shattered his world. But now he had to make a choice. He could walk away, leave it all behind, or he could fight for the truth, for the baby, for a future that wasn't built on lies. His decision was clear. He couldn't let the lies stand. He couldn't let the child suffer because of mistakes made before she was even born. He stood up, his hands trembling as he made his way to the door. "I have to find out who is behind this," he muttered under his breath, his voice filled with resolve. Vanessa, still sitting in the corner, watched him with a mixture of guilt and fear. She knew what was at stake now, and she knew that whatever happened next, things would never be the same. William's mind raced as he thought about the people who had been manipulating Vanessa, controlling her with threats and lies. He had to protect her, protect the baby, and find the truth that had been hidden for so long. But where to start? How did he even begin to untangle the web of deceit that had been spun around him? His first step was clear. He needed to find Mary, the maid's daughter. The young girl had known the truth all along. She had seen things others had missed. She was the key to unlocking the rest of the mystery. William picked up his phone and dialed her number, his heart pounding in his chest. The phone rang several times before she finally picked up. Hello. Mary's voice was soft, but there was a strength in it that William couldn't ignore. Mary, it's William, he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind inside him. I need your help. I need to know everything you know about Vanessa, about the baby. I need to find out who's behind all of this. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. I'll meet you, Mary said, her voice filled with certainty. I know where to start. But you need to be careful, Mr. Masters. This goes deeper than you think. The words sent a chill down William's spine. He had suspected that there was more to the story than just a simple lie. But now, hearing Mary's warning, he knew that the truth was going to be even more dangerous than he had imagined. He made arrangements to meet Mary at a small, quiet cafe in the city, away from prying eyes. As he walked into the cafe, he spotted her immediately, standing by the window, looking calm and collected, her eyes scanning the room as if she was waiting for something or someone. He approached her slowly, taking a seat across from her. What do you know? He asked, his voice low. Mary leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. I know who's behind this, she said, her voice firm. And I know what you need to do to protect the baby. But you have to listen to me, Mr. Masters. This is going to get worse before it gets better. William nodded, his determination growing. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew that he couldn't back down now. He had to see this through, for the baby, for the truth, and for his own peace of mind. Tell me everything, he said, leaning in, ready to hear the rest of the story, no matter how dark it might be. William listened intently as Mary continued, her words carefully measured, yet filled with urgency. She had promised him the truth, and now, she was about to reveal the part of the story he had been dreading. It's not just about the baby, Mr. Masters, Mary began, her voice low. Vanessa's connection to the criminal world goes back years. She was involved in something far bigger than you realize. William's heart raced, his mind trying to process what she was saying. Bigger than I realize? What are you talking about? He asked, leaning forward. Mary glanced around the cafe, her eyes scanning the room, ensuring they were not being watched. You've heard of the Blackstone Syndicate, haven't you? She asked quietly. William nodded, his face hardening. The Blackstone Syndicate was a notorious criminal organization with deep ties to illegal activities, everything from money laundering to drug trafficking. But he had never imagined Vanessa could be involved in something like that. Vanessa was involved with them before she met you, Mary continued. She was trying to escape, trying to leave that world behind. But they don't let people go that easily. They've been watching her, and they've been using her. And now, they've got the baby involved. William's chest tightened as the truth began to sink in. What do they want from me? What do they want from the baby? Mary's gaze softened, but her voice was firm. They want you to stay in the dark. They want you to think everything is normal, to keep up the facade of the perfect family. But it's all a game to them. And the baby, she's the key to keeping you in line. William's mind spun. The baby wasn't just caught in the middle of a web of lies. It was a pawn in a dangerous game. So, they've been using Vanessa all along, he asked, his voice tight with anger. Mary nodded. Yes. And now they're using the baby. If you want to protect her, if you want to protect your family, you need to act fast. They're not going to stop until they get what they want. William's jaw clenched as he processed the weight of Mary's words. He had spent years building his empire, trusting the people around him, and now everything he had worked for seemed to be crumbling. But there was one thing that remained clear. He would protect the baby, no matter the cost. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice resolute. Mary leaned in closer, her eyes locking with his. You need to expose them. You need to find out who in your circle is working with them, who's feeding them information, who's helping them keep this whole thing a secret. William felt the blood drain from his face as he realized the full scope of the situation. It wasn't just about Vanessa, it was about the people he trusted, the people closest to him. "And how do I do that?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Mary's expression hardened. "You've got to go after the syndicate's connections. Follow the money, follow the lies. Find out who they've been in contact with, who's been helping them stay in the shadows." William stood up, his resolve hardening. He could no longer stay in the dark, pretending everything was fine. He had to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy and protect his family. "I'll do it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I'll find out who's behind all of this, and I'll make sure they can't hurt anyone else." Mary nodded, her face softening slightly. "Be careful, Mr. Masters. This won't be easy, and it won't be pretty. But you've got to take the first step. You've got to get to the truth." As William walked out of the cafe, the weight of the world seemed to settle on his shoulders. He had a long road ahead of him, and he didn't know who he could trust anymore. But one thing was certain. He would fight for the truth, and he would fight for the baby, no matter what. He had no choice now. William had spent the next few days going over everything he knew, trying to make sense of the tangled web of lies surrounding him. The more he dug, the deeper the conspiracy seemed to run. It wasn't just Vanessa and the baby at the center of it all. It was his entire life, his empire, and the people he trusted. With every conversation, every lead, he uncovered new information that only made the situation more complicated. But there was no turning back now. He had to keep moving forward, no matter what it took. The first step was to confront the people who might be involved. William had arranged a meeting with his most trusted advisors, the people he believed to be loyal. But as he entered the conference room, he noticed something unsettling. The usual air of camaraderie was gone, replaced with a palpable tension. The faces of the men and women sitting around the table were unreadable, their eyes shifting nervously as William took his seat at the head. He looked around, his gaze sharp, trying to read each person's expression. He could feel it, the unease, the subtle guilt in the air. "I've called this meeting for one reason," he began, his voice steady but laced with authority. "I need to know who's been working with the Blackstone Syndicate. I need to know who's been betraying me, and I need answers now." The room went silent. The usual chatter and small talk that marked their meetings had evaporated. William watched as each of them avoided eye contact, their discomfort palpable. The longer the silence dragged on, the more he felt the weight of the truth pressing down on him. Finally, one of his senior advisors, Thomas, spoke up, his voice wavering slightly. "What are you talking about, William? What's this about the syndicate?" William leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "I know you're all involved in something. I know someone's been feeding information to them. I need to know who it is, and I need to know now." The tension in the room thickened. No one spoke. They just sat there, their faces frozen in expressions of fear and guilt. William could feel the walls closing in. He had trusted these people, these men and women who had helped him build his empire, and now he was looking at them as if they were strangers. "You know what's at stake here," he continued, his voice cold. "The future of this company, our reputation, everything we've worked for, it's all hanging by a thread. If I can't trust you, then everything falls apart." As the words left his mouth, he saw the shift. The men and women around the table exchanged nervous glances. Thomas shifted in his seat, his hands trembling as he finally spoke again. "William, we've been loyal to you. We've all been through a lot together, and I swear to you, we've been on your side." William stared at him, his eyes hard. "Then why did I find out about the syndicate from a child? Why did I have to hear it from Mary, the maid's daughter, instead of any of you?" There was a long pause before Thomas spoke again, his voice low and filled with regret. "We didn't know how to tell you, William. We were trying to protect you. The syndicate." He stopped himself, his voice trailing off as if he couldn't bring himself to say more. "Trying to protect me?" William's voice rose, a mix of anger and disbelief. "How could you protect me by keeping secrets from me? How could you protect me by letting this happen under my nose?" He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor as he walked toward the window, his hands clenched into fists. "I have been in the dark about everything. And now, I find out that the people closest to me have been hiding the truth. All of you." He stopped himself before the words could spill out. There was no time for anger. There was no time for blame. He had to focus. He had to fix this. Slowly, he turned back toward the table. "I want names," he said, his voice steady but filled with cold determination. "I want to know who's been feeding the syndicate information. I want the truth, and I want it now." The room was silent again, but this time, the silence was different. This time it was heavy with the weight of the truth, and William knew that the answers he sought were closer than ever before. The game was changing, and now, it was his turn to play. As the meeting adjourned, William walked out of the room, his mind already racing with plans. The first step had been taken. The truth was out, and now, he would use it to take back control. Nothing would stand in his way. William had taken the first steps to reclaim control over his life and his empire. The names had been revealed, the truth had come to light, and now the pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to fit together. He had confronted those closest to him, and although the weight of their betrayal was heavy, the determination in him to protect what mattered was stronger. The following days were filled with strategic meetings and plans. William knew he had to act quickly if he was going to shield the baby from the syndicate's grasp. The criminal organization that had infiltrated his life was more powerful than he had ever realized. But it had made one critical mistake. It had underestimated him. With the truth in hand, William used his connections to track down the syndicate's leaders, slowly pulling the strings to expose them. As he worked behind the scenes, Vanessa, despite her guilt and regret, was by his side. She knew the damage she had caused, but she also understood the importance of fixing the mess she had contributed to. Together, they began to repair the fractures in their family, even though it seemed like the odds were stacked against them. Their first step was to protect the baby, ensuring that she was kept safe from anyone who might try to exploit her as leverage. They moved her to a secure location, far away from prying eyes, but it was only the beginning. William knew the battle was far from over. The syndicate was still out there, still working to undermine everything he had built. The final confrontation was inevitable. William knew he had to confront the syndicate head-on, and with the truth on his side, he felt more confident than ever. He would not allow his empire to crumble. As the weeks passed, the tension between William and the remaining members of his inner circle continued to grow. Trust had been broken, but William wasn't about to let that be the end of the story. He had come too far. He had worked too hard. The final showdown came when the syndicate made their move, trying to leverage one last hold on William's empire. It was a moment of reckoning. With his back against the wall, William used everything at his disposal, his wealth, his resources, and his unwavering resolve, to expose the syndicate for the world to see. The operation was swift, and the truth was revealed in full. The criminal organization was brought to its knees, their power shattered. The final pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, and William was finally free from the chains that had bound him for so long. In the aftermath, as William stood among the ruins of the syndicate's operations, he realized something important. His journey had not just been about reclaiming his life or empire. It had been about standing up for what was right. It had been about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, and finding the courage to do what was necessary, no matter the cost. As he walked away from the ashes of the battle, he looked toward the future with a sense of hope. The past was behind him, and the future was his to shape. William had not only survived the ordeal, he had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to rebuild. And for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. With his family safe, his empire secured, and the truth finally out, William knew that no matter what came next, he was ready. He had faced the darkness, and he had won.